It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down. It's like a loop machine.
Hello, this is Bryan Fulford with the Black College Sports Network, and I have the pleasure of speaking to the head coach of the Florida A&M Rattlers, Coach Willie Simmons, off of the huge win over previously number one ranked North Carolina A&T, a big MEAC showdown, a game of the week, game of the year contest. Coach, how are we feeling the day after?
Well, we're feeling like we played a hard-fought football game. But very excited, obviously, very elated to be 6-1 overall, but more importantly, 4-0 in conference play. And, of course, we got ranked in the FCS top 25 this week for the first time in 10 years, so that's a huge accomplishment for this football team. But, of course, we know that the work is not done, and we can't rest on our laurels. We have to roll our sleeves up and go back to work. We have 4 more football games left, all conference opponents, and we know we'll get everyone's best. And so we had to use our 24-hour rule as always. Had to be a little bit accelerated this week because we're down one day of preparation, but we'll come back ready to get to work and, put this one behind us and again, get on to Morgan State.
Describe, if you would, the emotions of the weekend, having to, the hype and the buildup and the anticipation that went into the week, then the delay and the postponement. I mean, and I don't know if you had a sense or was there any kind of worry maybe that the game would not be played this weekend, and then to it having it actually be played, and then the emotions of that game. And I saw that look you had at the end of the game, and I didn't know if that was a look of relief or it was just pure joy or exhaustion. Give us a description of your emotions over the last 48, 72 hours.
Well, obviously when the news hit that the tropical storm was approaching, we were all a little concerned. Obviously with us having to endure Hurricane Michael last year and the devastation that it caused, we definitely understand the severity of any type of tropical storm, whether it be hurricane, tornado, tropical storm, cyclone, you name it, especially in this region of the United States. And so, of course, safety is our number one concern, even more so than the football game. But once we saw that the storm didn't appear to be much of a major threat, our focus at that point shifted to, well, when are we going to play the game, or even in some cases, if we play the game. That was my number one concern because I know how bad everyone wanted to see this game. We know how bad we wanted to play this game. And so we definitely wanted to make sure that we got it on. And then obviously the administration made the decision to move the game to Sunday at 2 p.m. And so that gave us a little bit of a relief just knowing that the game was going to be played. It gave us an extra day of preparation. And so we had to channel our energy towards that extra day. After the game, I think I went through every emotion that you could think of. There was joy, there was exhaustion, there was a humility that I felt just being blessed to be the head coach of such a great group of guys and such a great institution like Florida A&M, and to play in games like this. And so, the initial reaction was just jubilation. And then from that, it switched right to just giving thanks to God for the opportunity that He's blessed me with. And then after that, more hugs and congratulatory pictures and you name it. And then even be able to go into the band and direct the incomparable Marching 100, in one of their post-game songs. So it was a great moment, in our program's history, and I think one that people will remember for a long time.
How difficult or how challenging, maybe is a better way, is it to go from back-to-back games where you're playing two of the best? I mean, we know Florida A&M's and your program, you're not going to shy away from playing the best. That's what the program has been built on for decades. And so, but take us into what has that been like for you and the coaches to go from the South Carolina State game, the outcome, the quick turnaround, and now, hey, there's no extra day off. You got to go right back into your normal schedule, I guess. And now it's on to Morgan State now. I mean, what's that been like for you and the coaches?
Well, for one, I think, and probably every coach in America can attest to this, once you get through a couple of games, it just becomes routine. You know, you have a weekly schedule that you abide by. If there's a typical Saturday to Saturday game, the only adjustment will be if there's a Thursday night game or a midweek game or something. In our case, a Sunday game just yesterday. But, you know, we get into that mode where we know what we have to do preparation-wise. You know, that's what we tell our guys. We have 24 hours. After we win the game, we have 24 hours. And of course, that's not a real 24 hours. If the game ends at 9 o'clock on Saturday evening, we're not going to celebrate it until 9 o'clock Sunday. You know, we're going to be back in the facility at 1 o'clock for weights and treatment. And then we'll have our typical segment meetings to watch the film with the coaches, and then we're a team meeting at 4 o'clock. So that's our normal routine. But, you know, we talked about it going into this season, that the MEAC is a tough conference. You know, I don't want to throw names out there to compare us to the SEC or anything like that, but it's that same mindset that, you know, every week you have to come to play. And so, yes, you win a huge game against South Carolina State on the road, last drive. Guess what? You got to turn right back around and get ready for the Aggies coming to town.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's just what this conference is. And so, you know, you mentally prepare yourself for that. Our guys understand that. They know now. They don't ask questions about what we're going to wear to practice, about what time we're going to practice. They know the routine. And so as long as we stick to that routine, don't deviate from it, keep the formula that we've had in place that's allowed us the success that we've had, I think it keeps everyone at bay, or, you know, to allow us to continue to operate at the capacity that we're doing.
I'm personally I guess I'm always amazed and appreciative of the coaches who are able to sort of establish that routine and get their players to buy into it, because I often look at things or see more things from the fan and media perspective. And so I know fans, and, you know, I've been one, am one. I mean, we live and die on these games, you know, so to speak. You know, and so it's like you go from those emotions after a big win, and the talking goes on for days. And then it kind of carries on right up until maybe a day or two before you have to turn around and, okay, who's the next opponent? But you're still, you know, sitting around being proud of your team. And I'm just always amazed. Well, I shouldn't be amazed, but I just really appreciate it, and I appreciate you sharing that answer, because I think more people should really appreciate how hard it is and what you as coaches and the players go through in establishing that routine. So getting into this game had everything, and I think that's why, in my opinion, it definitely is one of the games of the year, because we had offensive drama. We had defensive stops all of a sudden, right, when we were questioning, okay, is everybody going to score every possession? Then we had a couple of turnovers. Then we had the halftime situation, and then we had the second half. Let's start from the beginning, or let's just go from the opening possessions. Did it surprise you at all that the first 5 possessions went the pattern that they went? You know, touchdown FAMU, A&T score, FAMU score. Was there kind of any moment when you looked up in that first quarter and said, okay, when are we getting to stop? When is this going to slow down a little bit?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, you know, when you look at games, and typically, especially in conference, you know, you look at two strong teams, which A&T, you know, and us have shown that we're pretty strong football teams in this conference. And when you look at those type of games, you pick any conference, and you pick two of the best teams, as they play each other every year. You know, one year it may be a 17-14 game. The very next year it might be a 35-38 game. You know, again, it's just each year poses a different set of challenges. Each year one team gets stronger in certain areas and may get weaker in others. And so last year it was a defensive slugfest. You know, you're talking about two teams that we gave up. Basically, our defense gave up 7 points to their offense. You know, basically, you know, it's 14, but one was a fade ball after a block punt that they got the ball on the 6-yard line. Their defense gave up 22 points to our offense. And so it was a defensive slugfest last year. You fast forward to yesterday's game, like you said, the first 5 possessions are touchdowns. And it's like, wow. So A&T can't slow us down. We can't slow A&T down. And then the game, you know, like it always does, it starts to kind of take shape. And teams start to settle in. the emotions kind of even out a little bit for those pregame, things that go on in those big type of ball games. And then it became a football game. And so, like you said, it had a couple of turnovers on both sides of the ball. There was some special teams plays, great special teams plays on both sides. And then both teams really kind of came to their own. So it was a really good football game, which we expected that. I said, you know what, we got to be prepared to win 50-49, just as much as we got to be prepared to win it 8-7. You know what I mean? And that's just the way football goes. And the flow of the game dictates how we call the game. I couldn't tell you before what the final score would be. I couldn't tell you if we'd be able to move the ball against their defense. I couldn't tell you if we'd be able to stop their offense. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, once the game starts, you kind of get a feel for how things are going, and that's just what the game poses, and that's why it's so unique to coach at this level, because every week is a different set of challenges, and you hope that you perform at a high level in all three phases. But guess what? They practice just as much as we do. They're going to put 11 guys on the field that are good football players, just like we are, and it's a group of guys that really prepare the best during that week, that gives each team the best chance to be successful. And judging from yesterday's game, both teams had extraordinary weeks of practice and preparation, and it showed. And it came down to literally the very last play of the game.
Yeah, definitely it did. What was your takeaway as you watched, obviously, Jermaine Martin? I thought, the defense did a good job of corralling him and not letting him have the big play. I mean, he may have had a couple of runs where he got, 9 or 10 yards on a run, but for the most part, I think his total net was like 71 yards. But Khalil Carter, I thought Khalil Carter was playing a good game for A&T prior to his injury. Did you see him in person versus on film? Did it go about as expected, or did they do some things maybe that kind of caught you and your coaching staff by surprise, or they just really elevated their play? Well, if you would, just comment a little bit on what you saw from Carter and Martin.
Well, the thing is, when you have a dynamic player such as Jermaine Martin, a guy that's averaging 150 yards a game, almost leading the nation in touchdowns, you place a heavy emphasis on trying to, contain him. And you don't want to use the word stop because, I don't think he's been stopped all year. But, again, whenever you focus that much on one individual player, especially a running back, that obviously opens things up in the passing game. And they had a really good game plan of throwing the ball on the perimeter. Zach Leslie, who quiet as kept, I've always been probably the most concerned about when we play A&T. He doesn't get the recognition that Elijah Bell does, or Jermaine Martin or Khalil Carter gets. But I tell you what, man, he's a tall drink of water, great ball skills. I mean, he had the type of game that I thought he was capable of having, 11 catches for 136 yards. And so they placed an emphasis on throwing the football, which they hadn't really shown much of this year. And I commend their offensive staff for putting that game plan together. And but our defense, again, they stood up when they needed to the most. They had a ton of yards. I think 496 yards of total offense against us, which aside from UCF is the most we've given up all year.
Right.
But we held them to, I think, 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals. And so whenever you make them line up to kick field goals, kind of that bend but don't break mentality, I thought our defense performed extremely well in that area. And so they have a ton of really good football players. You don't become the team that they are, win as many games as they've won, if you don't have good players. They're not just one-dimensional. Jermaine Martin has been a great player for them so far this year, but Elijah Bell's the all-time leading receiver at the school. Zach Leslie's one of the top 5 receivers in the MEAC. Khalil Carter's a big-time quarterback for them. They have a really good offensive line. They got weapons all over the field, very similar to us. And so, again, we knew that our hands would be full with that offense. But, again, I tip my hat to our defense, for not breaking. We bent a lot yesterday, but we didn't break. Yeah. And that's a sign of a veteran group, even without having your defensive coordinator for the second half.
Yeah, that you said it right there. I thought anyone who went and looked at the statistics, you might come away thinking one thing, but that's sort of I've become this fan of this statement that numbers can lie, and the numbers can lie, especially when you don't put them in context. And the fact that you did force them into I think it was 3 field goals in the red zone, where they had the offensive possession in the red zone at about maybe the 10-yard line, and the defense didn't give up touchdowns, especially there at the end of the game. And I mean, 2 outstanding plays by your defensive backs. I was searching for their names here at the end. I think
Troy Hilton.
Troy Hilton. Now, he wasn't on both of those plays against Leslie, was he? I think he was. Okay.
He was on both.
Okay,
number 30 was on both of them.
Outstanding job. I mean, I thought I read something different in the play-by-play, but I appreciate you clarifying that. So, outstanding job, and to not pick up a pass interference, which oftentimes you see when quarterbacks throw that little high fade to a guy like that. You sometimes see the DBs, and I mean, just outstanding coverage there by the defense and by Mr. Hilton there, Troy Hilton. Make sure we get that name right. So moving over to our side of the ball, I thought Ryan Stanley had a great game, and then the injury happened, and I don't know what you can tell us or what specifics you can share with us, but I thought he was having a good game until it was pointed out, and he even went to the locker room and came back. And then you made the switch with the quarterbacks. What can you tell us about Ryan as of Monday?
That's Raven. Well, you know what? I thought he did play a really solid football game. You know, he came out, opened the drive, threw a dime to Xavier Smith, 56-yard touchdown pass. Came out the next drive, marched it straight down the field, made some big-time throws, and even ran the ball well. You know, 3 weeks in a row, he's done a really good job of running the football. And then, unfortunately, has the injury to his shoulder. And I think he just, on a run play, I think a defensive lineman fell on his shoulder, and I think he has an AC sprain. So nothing major, but again, something he'll definitely have to battle through for the next week or so. But made a decision. He played the next 2 or 3, I think 2 more series after that. And, once the pain got unbearable, and he's as tough as they come. He would have stayed in the game and gutted it out, had we not made the decision to go at Rashawn. And fortunately for us, Rashawn has shown this year, that he's a capable backup quarterback. Went in against UCF in a hostile environment, performed really well against them. Next week against Fort Valley State, went 11 for 12, and I think his only incompletion was a tip ball interception. And so, he's been putting in the work. We have a ton of confidence in him, and that's why we decided to go with him. And so he did a phenomenal job for us. Came in a pressure-packed situation against the number 1 team in the country, going in overtime, and all he did was come in and drop a dime in the corner of the end zone, for the game-winning touchdown. So just a huge testament to him, his resolve, his just poise in that situation for a redshirt freshman quarterback to have that much poise in that situation is a true testament to him and the coaching that he's received from Coach KJ Black. So, but I thought Ryan played a real solid football game before he went down, and hopefully he'll be able to come back soon because he is unquestioned leader of this offense, and we're a lot better when he's at the helm.
Right. So, I mean, as it stands right now, there's no determination as to whether Ryan will or will not play this upcoming week. I'm sure that'll come, a little later in the week, I guess.
Yeah, it will. Again, he went and got looked at today, and haven't had a chance to meet with my head athletic trainer yet. We'll do that tomorrow morning, get an update, on his prognosis. We think we know what it is, but again, he'll give us an idea of what the timetable looks like. And, knowing Ryan, if he can go, he will. And we'll definitely make a game time decision as to what's best for us this Saturday as well as long term.
And so Rashawn in overtime, 3rd and 7 from the 22. Take us into that play, if you would. Was that throw obviously it was the right call for the moment, but I mean, was that the plan? Was it get the first down or take advantage of something that had been seen earlier? Walk us through what that situation is like on 3rd and 7 with in overtime, down by 3.
Well, they started to play a bunch of man coverage, and we figured we can run some type of pick play but they started to load us up a little bit on pressures. So we wanted to call a play where he can kind of take a rhythm drop and get the ball out of his hands. And so, it was a play that gave us a one-on-one option outside, which was Marcus matched up against their field corner. We always felt like Mac McClain was the top corner, and obviously he was out of the game because of the ejection at halftime. And, we thought that we had a matchup with Marcus against their backup corner. And so we ran a good route, got good leverage on the DB. And, again, Rashawn saw the man coverage, and that's the route that we want to throw versus man, and made a big-time throw. Again, dropped it right there at the front corner of the pylon. Marcus did a great job of separating, getting his hands underneath the ball. I mean, it was a low ball, so he had to get his hands under the ball and, caught it right at the goal line. So, again, what better finish in that type of ball game than catching the ball literally at the goal line. And everyone ran on the field, and obviously, of course, there was a flag on the play that ultimately got picked up and waved off. But, again, it almost reminded me of, I guess, it was an LSU game against Kentucky some years back when the game was over with.
Oh, my goodness.
They hit the coach with the ice bath out. That's all I was thinking. I was like, Lord, please don't let the call touchdown. And now we got to figure out how we're going to run another play, because if it was a penalty, obviously it backs us up more. And, now we're looking at possibly being out of field goal range. So it went from just total jubilation, excitement to, oh, my God, what are we going to do next? For that probably 15, 20 seconds of those guys deliberating what the call was going to be. But, again, just a great ending to a phenomenal football game. Again, goes down as one of the best games I've definitely been a part of. And, definitely one of the biggest games in this heated rivalry that we've developed on the football field.
Yeah, no, I tell you, the officials had some interesting calls and decisions all game. They definitely had they put in their work, most definitely. we'll just leave it at that they put in their work. I also didn't mention it, but I just wanted to just take a quick moment. The incident that happened going into the halftime. Any comments? I read some comments from you earlier, but anything that you would like to add regarding that whole thing that happened there before, or I guess as both teams were going into halftime?
Well, the biggest thing is today I've spoken, my athletic director, and I have spoken with Commissioner Thomas, the administration from the MEAC office. And, we've talked about the incident and things that we can do moving forward to prevent those type of situations from happening in the future. Obviously, with our configuration, with our locker room and which sideline we're on, potentially poses that type of problem with the teams having to cross at halftime. And so, again, I think things got a little bit blown out of proportion. You have something like that, and you look at it, two guys from each team got ejected as a result of making poor decisions. The other two guys, one from our team, one from their team, were dismissed from the game because of a blanket unsportsmanlike that was given to every player and every coach. And so those two guys that already had an unsportsmanlike in the first half because of their player for celebrating on our sideline after an interception, our player after a tackle on their sideline, he and one of their players both got an unsportsmanlike. So a couple of players got ejected because that was a second unsportsmanlike. And so 4 guys and really put a damper on what was, for all intents purposes, just a heated exchange. It wasn't a brawl. I've seen football brawls. It wasn't that. It wasn't helmet swinging. It wasn't people coming out of the stands. It was two teams being face-to-face, heated, talking, coaches trying to separate it, everyone there trying to de-escalate the situation. And, of course, when you get on camera, 1 or 2 players doing something and those players that got caught on camera were all ejected, that's what happened. So, again, I definitely don't want to take the attention off of a great football game by, just a halftime mishap that obviously – none of us are proud of, and again, neither institution is supporting that type of, those type of exchanges amongst teams. We're all about fair sportsmanship, good sportsmanship, doing things the right way to represent our institution in a first-class manner, but again, in the age of social media, camera phones, you can flip any narrative to fit whatever you wanted to say. But
Sure.
again, I thought it was a really good football game, and that's what I want the focus to be on. Two great institutions, the top two public institutions academically in the United States, the top probably two football teams in the United States, going toe to toe, and it was a great ball game, and it had a great finish. And at the end of the day, that's what people are going to remember, a year from now and down the road.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I will leave it at that. I could ask you a million questions, but I don't want to take too much more of your time. You got a busy schedule, and we're on to Morgan State, Florida A&M, currently 6-1, unbeaten 4-0 in the MEAC. Currently ranked 20th, I saw, in the Stats FCS poll. Pretty much will be probably number one. I've already seen number one in a couple of HBCU football polls, and probably a couple of more to come. So, but we all know that's just setting the table for a great second, I guess, final four games of the season is what we have. So I appreciate your time, Coach, as always. Appreciate you taking time out to do these interviews with us. And we are on to Morgan State. And so have a great week of preparation, you and the players, and we look forward to seeing you guys and safe travels up to Baltimore, correct?
Yes, sir. Flying into Baltimore Friday for a huge showdown against the Morgan State Bears. And my good friend Tyrone Wheatley, and those guys will be ready to play. I know he'll have them ready to play. But, again, we'll have our guys ready to play as well. So great win yesterday, but obviously, like I said in the beginning, we've moved on from that. And, we're on to the Morgan State Bears, and, of course, we know we have a lot of football left to play, all conference games, all games that we want to definitely make sure we finish as we continue to believe in our motto this year, fight to finish.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Coach Simmons. Appreciate your time as always. Have a great evening, and good luck to the Rattlers.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Go Rattlers.
It's like a loop machine.